According to the civil society Scaling Up Nutrition in Nigeria, about 70% of children under the age of 5 are deficient in key micronutrients. Today on Sound Health, our focus is on improving the country's nutrition systems. I'm Olasunbo Modupe. Welcome to the show. Children, young women and older adults are at the highest risk of micronutrient deficiencies. Malnourished children experience poor physical and mental growth. Today on Sound Health, Beatrice Eluaka, the Executive Secretary, Civil Society for Scaling Up of Nutrition in Nigeria, will share her expertise on how to improve the nutrition systems in the country. Welcome to the show, madam.
Thank you very much for having me.
If you look at the statistics out there, madam, Nigeria is one of the countries leading when you talk about malnourished children. How did we get here, ma'am?
To start with, micronutrients are food materials that are present in the the various kinds of food that we eat, and they are present in very minute amounts, and this is why most times someone who is deficient in micronutrients, you do not see it physically in them. That is why also this is called the hidden hunger. But then when it gets to a very serious stage, then you begin to see signs. What are these micronutrients we are talking about? Like I said, they are food materials. They are present in the food that we eat, and they are present in a variety of foods. Example of them are vitamin A. We know we get vitamin A from green leafy vegetables and so on. We are talking about iron, which is present in mostly animal sources, eggs and so on, egg yolk. We have zinc, and we have iodine. These are the micronutrients that are very important for life. And the surveys conducted in 2001 showed that we have serious deficiencies in these micronutrients. A deficiency of iron will lead to what we know as anemia. And the data that we have is telling us that as much as 70% of preschool children under 5 years are anemic. And then about 60% or more of our women, pregnant women, are also anemic. And this has very serious implications for living a productive life. So there is a lot of need to address these problems. Vitamin A deficiency, for example, also leads to blindness, night blindness, and eventually blindness. In addition, it affects the immunity of the child or an individual and makes it, impossible for these individuals to resist infections and so on. And of course, you know about the link between zinc and diarrhea. We are now treating diarrhea with ORS. When a child has diarrhea, we give that to stop the diarrhea and to treat the infections that has caused the diarrhea. So we have iodine deficiency. Many years ago, we saw a lot of women and people with goiter, and then something was done. These days, we don't see a lot of goiter, but it is also associated, that is iodine deficiency, associated with cognitive development and general child development, and also affects the outcome of the pregnancy and so on. So those are challenges that we have in respect with micronutrient deficiencies.
How do you know you're deficient in some micronutrients?
Well, for anemia, the signs, of course, when you look at the eye of the child, the doctors know it looks very pale and so on. The area that should be bright red or white is looking very pale. And the individual is always very weak, feeling very weak, and you are not able to do your work. And it then begins to affect productivity. That is for anemia. And like I said, sometimes you don't know that you have these deficiencies until a test is done on you and so on. So it is important that when you begin to feel the way you usually don't feel normally, that you check yourselves out. When you don't see very clearly at night, for example, it may be a sign that you have vitamin A deficiency. So those are the things that you watch out. And of course, if there is frequent diarrhea and so on, then there is need to check it out and see what are the causes. Of course, the major causes of diarrhea would be unclean environment and poor water supply and so on. But then ability to resist those infections is also a sign that someone is deficient in one of those vitamins and minerals and so on.
Can you please share with us what causes micronutrient deficiencies and what are the consequences of this?
That is a very difficult question to answer. But then what we say is the reason that such things happen is lack of awareness. I wouldn't say lack of education, but awareness of what constitutes an adequate diet. And this is why it is important for us to strengthen nutrition education across board, so that the mother, while pregnant, will learn what she needs to do to take care of the baby when the baby finally arrives. So there is a lot of emphasis on nutrition education. Secondly, there's a lot of emphasis on supplementation. That is one of the strategies that we have adopted in Nigeria to deal with the issue of micronutrient deficiencies. Supplementation. Unfortunately, we haven't done quite well in this regard. We only do supplementation exercise twice in the year during the MNCH weeks, maternal, newborn and child health weeks, which comes up twice in the year. And so children are supplemented with vitamin A and so on. Supplementation in our health facilities has not been sustained for obvious reasons, funding and the rest of them. Apart from supplementation, there's also food fortification. In Nigeria, we have, it is mandatory to fortify certain foods with certain micronutrients. For example, our our salt in Nigeria is now fortified with, it is mandatory to fortify all salt that is produced in Nigeria or coming into Nigeria with iodine. And I think that this is the reason why the iodine deficiency and the goiter that we saw many years ago is kind of disappearing. We haven't arrived at where we want to be with that because we still hear cases of uniodized salt coming in through our borders and the rest of them. So that's another challenge that we need to address. Vegetable oil is also fortified with vitamin A. And then we have our wheat flour and maize flour, also fortified with vitamin A. And I hear now we're fortifying them with iron and the rest of them. So those are fortification foods that are mandatorily fortified with micronutrients in Nigeria. We're also looking at biofortified foods, and these are foods that have been planted, they have been, the micronutrients have been added before the crops are planted. So we see things like orange cassava, it's now coming up, orange colored cassava. We see things like orange fleshed sweet potato, biofortified with vitamin A and so on. And now we're looking at rice, fortifying rice with iron and the rest of them. So that is biofortification. These are areas where we are making some input. But then it is also important that we follow this with nutrition education, because it is important. I mean, it is difficult for people to change behavior. You're used to eating white sweet potatoes, and all of a sudden you see orange colored. So there is need for education to let people know, the reason for these new food items in the market. So again, we cannot overemphasize the importance of nutrition education to carry everyone along.
That brings me to my next question. Oftentimes, people are used to taking supplements, multivitamins. Can this set of drugs replace the key micronutrients needed?
Well, yes, but it's not at the reach of everyone. These supplements that we're talking about, it is better to get those supplements directly from the food itself. If we are eating well and we are eating the right kinds of food and the right combination of food, that is what we call dietary diversification, then we are certain to get the micronutrients that we need in the correct amounts that we need it. And therefore it would become a waste of money buying those supplements. But the supplements become very necessary when we are not consuming the right kinds of foods that will give us the micronutrients in the amounts that are required by the body to sustain health and to maintain life.
Okay. As an expert, can you please share with families, especially mothers, on how to achieve the key nourishment for children health?
I think that for a start, every individual needs to know that they need to eat well. And what does eating well mean? Let us try and define nutrition. It's the process of taking in foods in order for us to get the appropriate nutrients. That's a big word, but it means those food materials that will help make us grow, that will give us, all that we need to maintain and sustain life. So it is important to eat what people called in the past balanced diet. Now we call it adequate. So what makes an adequate diet? We know that we need protein for growth and for development of body tissues, repairs of the damages that happen. And these are coming from animal sources, meat, fish, milk, and so on. And then there are plant sources of protein as well, our beans and the rest of them. We know that we need energy for growth and to perform all the activities that we do. And this energy is coming from foods like our yam, cassava, semovita that we eat, rice, and the rest of them. And then we know that our micronutrients that we're talking about, like the vitamins, we have to get them also from vegetable and fruit sources. Now, there is no single food that will give us all of these together. And this is why we are talking about dietary diversification. What does that mean? It means at every meal we try to eat a variety of food so that at least we can get all the nutrients that we require for the body. So, and then they say that during pregnancy for the mothers is the greatest time of changing food into a human being. So the mother is eating for herself and also preparing for the child that is coming. During pregnancy, it is important that we eat. The mother eats very well. Eating very well does not mean eating more than is necessary, but ensuring that she gets the right kind and the right amount of food so that she will have the energy to look after herself and also take care of the child when the child comes and prepare the food for the child when it comes. And that is what breast milk. And so when the baby arrives, the only food that the baby needs is breast milk from the mother. And we are talking about exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months of life. And that means that the baby, if adequately breastfed, does not need anything else apart from mother's milk up to the age of 6 months. Not even water, because breast milk is over 80% water. And introducing water to a child takes up the child's small stomach so that the child will get filled up so quickly without getting the right nutrients from the breast milk. Secondly, the source of the water, if it is questionable, is a means of introducing infections to the child whose system is not fully developed to attack or to withstand infections. So these are areas that we need to focus on. At 6 months, breast milk alone is no longer sufficient for that child because the child is growing bigger, the child is more active, and so on. And therefore, in addition to breast milk, we need to start introducing other foods. And while introducing the other foods, we also need to ensure that we are making that whatever the child is getting in addition to breast milk, ensuring that it is made from a variety of foods to ensure adequate growth and good health for that child. So that is the what we are talking about. If we do this, then we are going to prevent a number of nutrition deficiencies that we now see in Nigeria. So what are we asking from our government that they can help us? What we have done is there are policies in place. The policies are in place and there are action plans. There is a multi-sectoral plan of action at national level, and states have been encouraged to come up with their state-specific plans of action and policies, these plans of actions that have been developed have been costed, and therefore you cannot implement a plan without a budget. So what we are saying is that government should approve. Some states have approved the action plans, and some states now have budget lines for nutrition in their states. So we're calling on all state governments to approve their state-specific plans of action and ensure that there is adequate budget for the implementation of those action plans. The same call goes to Lagos State, because I am aware that Lagos State has developed their specific plan of action and is currently awaiting approval. And we're hoping that the government of Lagos State will do well to approve this plan and to ensure that the plan is funded. And not only funded, to also checkmate the release and use of these funds, and to ensure that they are used, when it is released, it is used for that which it was intended for.
And we are hopeful that with that will fit.
Oh yes, yes. We are hopeful, and we know that it has worked in certain places, because the action plan is what people in Lagos State have decided that if they do it, it will help to reduce, if not eliminate, the poor nutritional status that they have in the state. So we are looking forward to a period when the poor indices that we have for malnutrition in Nigeria is drastically reduced.
Could micronutrient deficiencies be attributed to the high rate of obesity in the society?
Obesity is, a sign of malnutrition. There are three kinds of malnutrition. We have undernutrition, when the child is not getting enough. We have overnutrition, when people are getting more than their body needs. And then, of course, we have the micronutrient deficiency, which we have talked about generously. Obesity is something that can be addressed, again, through nutrition education, so that people know that they don't eat and eat until it starts coming out from where it shouldn't come out of. And again, because it will lead to things like cardiovascular diseases. It will lead to things like diabetes. When your body takes excess of what it requires. And that is why it is important that people know that they shouldn't overeat. And also, to add it, there are things that we also need to know, and that is activity. What we say as nutritionists is you need to balance the food you eat with the activities you perform, so that your body is capable of using that which you eat, and it is not stored to make you obese. So it is important that we begin to educate our people. Many years ago, they used to say that plumpiness is beautiful and all that, but it is not true. We now know better that fat people are so predisposed to other kinds of diseases.
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us on how to scale up Nigeria's nutrition system.
Thank you very much for having me. It's my pleasure.
Has been Beatrice Eluaka, Executive Secretary, Civil Society Scaling Up Nutrition in Nigeria, on how to improve the country's nutrition system. Sound Health continues in a moment. Please stay with us. to avoid deficiency in key micronutrients. Maintain a balanced diet. This is where we say thank you on today's episode of Sound Health. For comments and inquiries, please send SMS to 08035826603 or follow us on social media at LTV Social #Sound Health. A sound health is a sound mind. Make healthy living your choice.